to her of 3 rather than 2 worlds. The black iron prison world, which had been, our intermediate world in which oppression and war exist but have to a great degree been cast down, and then a 3rd alternative world which someday, when the correct variables in our past have been reprogrammed, will materialize as a superimposition onto this one, and within which, as we awaken to it, we shall suppose that we had always lived there.
He's talking about that some things in the past get changed, and then there can be the shift to this beautiful timeline, and with that, of course, the assumption of always having lived there. We already talked earlier about sometimes when we shift, we take old memories into the new timeline, but sometimes we don't. So he's probably assuming that when we shift to that beautiful world, we forget about the negative ones. Just like he described that he experienced the police tyranny state and Nixon not being overthrown. And then he got into this other world. He forgot all of that until he did take that drugs that he had for his medical procedure. And he probably thinks the same will happen, that when he shifts into this time track C, that he then forgets everything that happened in, I guess it was time track B, that was already better than time track A. And then he would, in time track C, only remember probably if he took drugs again. This is what we heard in the very beginning probably of the video. You know, Jesus telling his people, we can shift there, but it's only for the awakened ones, not for the ones who are sleeping, and that it is up to us to do the work and to be a good person in order to get there. Why do we have to be good people? By good people, obviously, it is not having a helping syndrome and neglecting your own needs, because if you put everybody else first, that is bad self-concept, and bad self-concept is like, oh, I don't deserve to have good things in my life because I don't even give myself good things. I don't deserve to be treated well because I don't do it myself. That, of course, could not bring someone to this beautiful time track. And that is why people often think, well, I'm always there for everyone, and the bad people, they get all the good stuff, and the good people, they get all the bad stuff. It's not that. It is the, let's say, bad people, the egoistic people, may have a better self-concept and have the feeling of I deserve good things, and then that might come to them. And another person who is always neglecting their own needs has a bad self-concept and thinks I don't deserve good things, even though a part of them thinks, yes, I do deserve it, but I'm not in the energy of receiving it because I'm not even living it myself. They cannot get there. But in order, I believe, to get into a time track C in this equation, you would have to be someone who treats others well as yourself. Because if you treat yourself always well, you have this good self-concept, but you treat others bad, then you ultimately don't have good self-concept, because everyone is you pushed out. So if you see anyone as less than you, then that is something that is projected from within you onto that other person, and you're rejecting some part of yourself. So an awakened person would treat others well as themselves, and they would think that other people deserve to have a happy life as well as themselves. And I think that is what the work would be in order to get to time track C in this equation, or for us, it is awakening, because you cannot be awakened when you look down on others. That would be still spiritual ego. Awakening means to realize that we are all connected, we all come from the same source, we all have the spark of divinity within us, and there's no soul better than another. This kind of separation, the illusion, is actually the opposite of being awakened. So an awakened person knows that we are all connected and would change their assumptions about other people into the best possible assumptions, and that is what is bringing one to the highest timeline. But let's get back to Philip K. Dick.
The memory of this intermediate one, like that of the black iron prison world, eradicated mercifully from our memories. The best that I can really do at this point, after having had these experiences and written these novels, is to play the role of prophet, of ancient prophets and such oracles as the Sibyl at Delphi, and to talk of a wonderful garden world, much like that which once our ancestors are said to have inhabited. In fact, I sometimes imagine it to be exactly that same world restored, as if a false trajectory of our world will eventually be fully corrected and once more we will be where once many thousands of years ago we lived and were happy.
But ultimately, God wanted to make every possible experience in order to grow, because that's the game, to realize who we are and to ascend. So if you would have stayed in that garden, in that paradise, all of that growth, all of that realization wouldn't have happened. So I guess we are striving to get there, but as I said earlier, we need to have had the darkness to really learn to appreciate the light, or to want to strive through that light. So having experienced the darkness, it's not an error, it is part of the program. As he said himself, the reprogrammer, as he calls God, already created everything. Everything has been written. So even the dark moments have been written, and they have some meaning, and they are just as divine as every other experience we could have, because they all lead to growth and to understanding, and to also finding out what do I like, what don't I like, which is beneficial, which is not. And all of that understanding will push us through the timelines to that desired timeline. You know, let's call it highest timeline, or track C as he calls it.
During the brief time I walked about in that garden world, I had the strong impression that it was our legitimate home, which somehow we had lost.
Yes, I also believe that it is our legitimate home, because we come from source, we come from love, we come from light, and we just stepped into the darkness in order to experience this journey. I remember in Conversations with God, Neil Donald Walsh wrote that little part of the little soul that wanted to experience itself. It was light, and it wanted to know what is light, but it didn't know who it was, because everything around that little soul was the same. So in order to find out who you are, you need to experience contrast. For example, if you want to make the experience of being a super fast person, then you need to have slower people around you, because if everybody is as fast as you, then you're not fast and you're average, right? Or if you want to make the experience of being super smart, then you need to have the experience of people around you to be less smart, because if they're all just as smart, you're average. So in order for our souls to find out that we are light, we have to experience darkness, and then within that darkness figure out, okay, we are not this darkness, we are actually light. This is where we are coming from, and this is where we are striving to get again.
The time I spent there was short, about 6 hours of real elapsed time, but I remember it well. In the novel I wrote with Roger Zelazny, Deus Irae, I describe it toward the end, at the point where the curse is lifted from the world by the death. What's amazing to me about this park-like world, this track C, was the non-Christian elements forming the basis of it.
So I don't believe that the whole of humanity will get to the gardens, track C, paradise, awakening all at the same time, because this is not how this is playing out. In order to experience ourselves, or let's say you are awakened and then you want to make the experience of helping others, you're still manifesting people who are less awakened than you. But then again, time is an illusion, so of course we are all at the same time simultaneously in the darkness and in the light, because time is an illusion and we just experience it. Also, I'm not too surprised that there were non-Christian elements in this, because Christianity is, well, it's religion, it's man-made. And the difference between religion and spirituality is that in religion you follow the teachings of someone else, whereas in spirituality you may read the teaching of someone else, but you see how does it resonate, and you learn to connect to the divine, to your higher part by yourself, instead of following the rules that someone else made. Because the rules someone made may have been legit for them, because law of assumptions, right? It was their rules, but they may not have been the same for you. Let's say, for example, someone experienced what is something unlucky. I think like a black cat, right? So I don't know if it's like walking from left to right, right to left, but someone saw a black cat and then something negative happened. And that got stored in his subconscious mind. And then same thing happened. You know, they saw a black cat and something negative happened. And then maybe in the subconscious mind there is a connection formed. Oh, I see a black cat, something bad happens. And then that assumption would manifest in autopilot, that when something bad happens, before that they see a black cat, or they see a black cat, and then they have the assumption, oh my god, something negative is going to happen, and then that is going to happen. And then a person tells other people, wow, black cats are a really bad omen. And some people, they just neglect that and nothing happens for them, but then other people pick up on that assumption, make it theirs, and then for them black cat also means that some misfortune is going to happen, because it's the law of assumption, it's their manifestation. But when you make another person's assumptions your own, yes, they are legit for you too. In spirituality, we want to decipher which are our own assumptions, which ones did we get from others, and then we can reprogram those assumptions. But Christianity, it's a collection of someone else's assumptions, a group of people's assumptions that are then taught, and some people make it their own and live by that, but others don't. But God is not connected to religion. That is just one aspect of experiencing God, and some people just made that a firm rule. And then unfortunately there has been a lot of war. I honestly believe most genocides or wars in this earth were caused by religion, because spirituality means to realize we are all connected. We may be different, but that's just God wanting to experience difference, but we are all the same. Whereas religion is often dividing and then creating, holocausts, for example. One religion fighting another. And that has happened throughout history. The Jewish people killing the Christians, then the Christians killing the Jews, and then other religions getting into the mix. So this, again, it is something man-made. And in a place of true awakening, we most likely learned to shed those man-made dogmas, you could say. So I'm not surprised that this garden he's talking about doesn't have any Christian, or probably not just Christian, but any kind of religious elements to it, but more spiritual.
It was not what my Christian training had prepared me for at all. Even when it began to phase out, I still saw sky, I saw land and dark blue smooth water, and standing by the edge of the water, a beautiful nude woman whom I recognized as Aphrodite. At that point, this other, better world had diminished to a mere landscape beyond the golden rectangle doorway. The outline of the doorway pulsed with laser-like light, and it all grew smaller and was at last gone from sight. The 3 to 5 doorway, devouring itself into nothingness, sealing off what lay beyond. I have not seen it since, but I had the firm impression that this was the next world, not of the Christians, but the Arcady of the Greco-Roman world, something older and more beautiful than that which my own religion can conjure up as a lure to keep us in a state of dutiful morality and faith.
He saw this paradise that he saw as more like Roman tradition. Aphrodite was Greek, not Roman, but doesn't matter. But we need to remember everything is as pushed out. So even there must be infinite version of this beautiful garden, and something within him created that. So maybe he did have problems with Christianity growing up and discarded that as being paradise, but something within him, it may be some kind of romantic notion. I don't mean romantic as in love related, but more in something that was a fantasy he liked. He felt connected to the Roman or Greek mythology, and that assumption within him put him onto a timeline where that garden, that heaven, that Traxi, paradise, had some kind of Roman or Greek connotations. But that does not mean that paradise necessarily is that way. Again, that is just one out of multiple scenarios, so it's not the same for everyone, but the same for many. Probably because many people choose to experience that specific time track. Maybe also we get to experience all different kind of paradises. Who knows? That would be beautiful, wouldn't it be? But then again, if you already are in paradise, life after life after life, could get kind of dull, because we need contrast in order to grow. So if you already received like the highest high, then there isn't much room for growth anymore. So maybe it would get a little bit dull. Who knows? Please leave your comments. What do you think about that? But let's get back.
What I saw was very old and very lovely. Sky, sea, land, and the beautiful woman, and then nothing, for the door had shut, and I was closed off back here. It was with a bitter sense of loss that I saw it go, saw her go, really, since it all constellated about her. Aphrodite, I discovered when I...
So, okay, that was it. So, to him, his paradise is a beautiful woman. It's probably love. And as I said earlier, we come from love and we strive to go there, right? And then I think it's like a really deeply rooted desire of us to find that one person to really melt together. But yeah, that concludes my reaction video to Philip K. Dick, just on time, because I just got the message that my battery is running low. And I hope you like it, and please leave your comments. I'm so interested in what you have to say. And I just recorded like 3 hours. Of course I have to edit, so I'm going to turn this into multiple videos. Check out that series and make sure you subscribe, because I'm going to record a video on, yeah, as Never Got It called it, the wheel of recurrence, and what happens when we die in one timeline. And I have gathered some information and I have my own opinion. So that is definitely coming up. So please stay tuned to watch that. And yeah, I hope you liked it. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.